Thank you for joining us for CareFinder. My name is Phoebe James and I'm a Professional Development Officer with the Hunter New England Central Coast Primary Health Network. Before we go any further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we are all meeting on today. For me, I am in Newcastle and on beautiful Awabakal land, and pay my respects to elders past and present. The recording and the PDF slides of today will become available on the PHN website in the Education Library in the next few days. Presenting, we have Jocelyn Carston, Care for Older People Program Coordinator with the Hunter New England Central Coast Primary Health Network, and Clara Cummins, Team Leader with CareFinder. I will now pass over to Jocelyn.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Phoebe, and thanks everyone for tuning in and joining us. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the CareFinder program and the target population, and then I'll hand over to Clara to give us some real-world examples and some case studies that we've had so far in the program. So first off, the purpose of CareFinder is to provide that specialised and really intensive assistance to help the most vulnerable in our community understand and access aged care services and other relevant supports in the community. And those other relevant supports might be mental health services, general health services, drug and alcohol, homeless services, or some community groups. The target population, really looking at people who are eligible for aged care services. So they must meet both of the following, frail or prematurely aged, which means they have a functional need for help with one or more activities of daily living, as well as being aged either 65 years or older or 50 years and older for First Nations people, or if they're on a low income and homeless or risk of homeless, 50 years or older, or 45 years or older for First Nations people. Not only be eligible for aged care services, but for CareFinder, we're really trying to target those really more complex people that need intensive support because they are quite isolated and don't have anyone else that they can help them navigate the My Aged Care system. And generally with these people, they may also have difficulty communicating because of language or literacy problems. They might find it difficult to understand and make decisions because of some cognitive decline. They may be reluctant to engage with aged care service or government because of past traumatic experiences, or they might actually be in an unsafe situation if they don't receive some services. So some intensive support and assistance to get them set up is what they really need. So this is a lot of information on this slide, but it gives you a bit of a snapshot of the different avenues that older people can access to link in and get assessed and get services set up within My Aged Care. CareFinder is not meant to take over from the mainstream channels. It's more a supplementary support for those that need it. So people who are able to access, talk for themselves, advocate for themselves, or have someone to assist them to do that. There is the contact centre through My Aged Care. There's aged care specialist offices at Services Australia where you can go and have face-to-face appointments, or for those that are a bit more tech savvy, there's online channels that you can use to get information and get registered. The CareFinder therefore sits alongside that to really support those older people that need that navigational assistance to go through the process. Also, coming up is the Elder Care Support Program, which is specifically for First Nations people, and that is being led and rolled out by NACCHO. And then you've got some additional complementary supports for older people, which can be used by anyone. You've got OPAN advocates, which are really there to support people through some advocacy and help them if they're having some real issues with providers or getting any traction with what they're trying to do. You've got the National Dementia Helpline, and you've also got the Carer Gateway, which is a great resource for carers. This is just another way to show that CareFinders is really aiming to work with those more complex cases, whereas the majority of the population and older vulnerable people that you would see day to day should be encouraged to use the mainstream channels through the digital channels, the contact centre or the aged care specialist offices. Here's some example scenarios just to drill down in a bit more detail about those types of people that are in the CareFinder target population versus those individuals who should be encouraged to use mainstream My Aged Care support channels. I'm not going to go through these details now, but I encourage you to come back to these slides and get a bit of a feel for the differences between them. But it really does come down to, is there anyone that could assist the older person to navigate the My Aged Care process? If so, they're really not suitable for CareFinder. But if that person has no one else and lots of barriers and complex issues that they find it hard to advocate for themselves, very much CareFinder target population. So I'll hand over to Clara now to sort of outline what day-to-day the CareFinders can and do for the clients that they see. Thanks, Clara.
Thanks, Jocelyn, and thank you for taking the time to educate around the CareFinder service. The role of the CareFinder is very large. It's very broad. It's not time limited. They enable the person to navigate the My Aged Care system through accessing My Aged Care, potentially registering for the very first time, helping to act as an agent on behalf of the client, and arrange, schedule assessments. They can attend and support the individual at the time of the assessment, breaking information down and ensuring that the person is making informed choices. Once the assessment has been completed, they assist the person to find and shortlist service providers that operate in their area that meet their needs and that they're happy with. They help them complete forms, explain service agreements, break information down, and provide ongoing follow-up check-ins to ensure that they're continually happy with the service they're provided, connecting them with additional service in the community and providing referral pathways to those services. Highlighted by Jocelyn, such as health services, mental health, social supports, housing and homelessness, community and drug and alcohol. I'm going to talk through some case study examples of two lovely ladies, Mary and Alice. I'll summarise some of the work that we did with Mary, as the work was quite comprehensive. We began working with Mary over the time period of, I think, roughly 9 to 12 months. And just a bit of background around Mary. Mary is a 72-year-old lady with a long history of mental health issues and a schizophrenia diagnosis. She has a reluctance to engage with services due to previous non-voluntary hospitalizations. After having a stroke and unfortunately been found on the street, she was admitted to hospital. From there, it was assessed that she had no support person in her world to assist her with upon discharge, and there were grave concerns over her living environment, as she had been previously living in a caravan prior to the stroke admission, with neither the rent being sustainable nor a bathroom fit for purpose. The physio that was treating Mary at the time spoke to her about the CareFinder program, and Mary consented to the physio completing a referral on her behalf to be supported by the CareFinder program. So following on from the initial assessment, the CareFinder built great rapport with Mary, and a home visit was booked in and scheduled, and they set about setting some goals around how the CareFinder and Mary could achieve these goals and how she could best be supported. An ACAT assessment was booked in, and the CareFinder would be in attendance during that process. And it was Mary that identified that she really needed some continued support maintaining her home, tending to personal care, dressing, and that she'd like to have some home modifications, podiatry, physio, and some community transport. Fortunately for Mary, she was approved for a level 4 home care package, and in the interim of that process coming through, the care finder was able to support Mary with finding service providers through the Commonwealth Home Support Programme to work with Mary in the interim until her home care package came through. At all times, Mary was fully involved in the decision-making process and was ensured that she understood all of the information and to find the right fit and provider for her. Also, they established that one of Mary's goals was to find more suitable long-term accommodation, and with that, the care finder supported Mary with the housing application and attaining a long-term housing unit through community housing provider, and also to apply for a no-interest loan to enable her to get white goods for her new home. And once her home care package came through, she was assisted once again by the care finder to find a provider in her local LGA that she was happy with and could offer her a mixture of all of the services that she required, from personal care to domestic assistant, and along with that, a case manager to hopefully ensure Mary's continued support through her home care package. After 2 months of receiving her home care package through her new provider, the care finder reached out to Mary to check in and to complete what we call a high-level check-in to ensure Mary was continually happy with the service provider. And in such circumstances where there are any issues, the care finder can be the go-between to try to iron out any issues, or in worst case scenario, find another provider that Mary would be happy with, and this was what was conducted on Mary's behalf and in her full acknowledgement. Often, unfortunately, things cannot be resolved, but the care finder will always work to advocate for the person and to try to iron out any issues, and if necessary, find a new provider. Mary was found a new provider, and with that, continued to receive her high-level check-ins following on every 3 months from that. I'll speak to you now around Alice's journey with the Care Finder programme. Alice is, again, a 72-year-old lady, vulnerable and from the LGBTQI+ community. She has several chronic health conditions which affect her mobility, and she lives alone and is very socially isolated. Again, similar to Mary, she doesn't have anybody to support her with accessing my aged care or with any of her daily needs. Alice is registered with my aged care and has been approved for Commonwealth Home Support Programme. However, unfortunately, the process has come to a standstill due to her not understanding the process and not being able to activate the referral codes that she's been granted, and feeling very lost and overwhelmed, and I guess forgotten about, which aligned to her feeling in the community of being discriminated against. Alice was reluctant to follow up with my aged care as a result. She has a good relationship, thankfully, with her GP, and at a routine visit she mentioned this to her GP, and thankfully the surgery had a visit from a care finder doing an info share recently, and was able to request Alice's consent for a referral to be made, to which she agreed. Again, the caseworker with the Care Finder programme reached out to Alice, built the rapport. They identified the goals and support needs for Alice, and the case was resolved. However, unfortunately, 9 months later, Alice's health declined further, and she was able to reach out to the care finder once again and re-refer herself. She realized at that point that she did need to that she did require residential admission, and thankfully the care finder was able to support her with finding a facility that met her needs, that was in line with her values. And a high-level check-in was also conducted with Alice to ensure that she was continually happy with the facility and it continued to meet her needs. Thank you. So in terms of the referral process, we can take referrals from any professional, any member of the community. People can self-refer. You can make a referral through phoning the phone line. We have a dedicated intake worker that will take the information over the phone. Or you can request a referral form, which can be sent directly to the care finders at wesleymission.org.au website or email address. And we'd request that for a minimum, the information required are as listed below. And I'd encourage you to provide as much information as possible to go in conjunction with the referral. We certainly would never end up with too much information. So anything that you add to ensure that we have the whole picture and a true reflection upon referral, we'd encourage that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Clara. So as you can hear, it really is an intensive process that care finder walks alongside, just similar to a family member or a really close friend would do with older people, to get them set up through the My Aged Care process and get them set up with services so they are happier, healthier and more engaged with their local communities for as long as possible. So we have Wesley Mission, where Clara works, delivering Care Finder, but we also have a suite of other organisations who are also delivering the Care Finder service across the Hunter New England Central Coast area. This table gives a bit of a breakdown between the New England, the Hunter and Mid Coast and the Central Coast region about who does what where. Everyone has a phone number and an email address there that you can reach out and talk to someone. But as Clara said, very much everything with consent and if possible in collaboration with the person that you are referring. And it's always really interesting to hear why you think Care Finder is the right person. So really around that isolation, why they can't navigate themselves, or some really complex needs. So this is just a really quick and easy flow diagram to bring home the point about which way where you should direct vulnerable Australians to. Many of you would see them in your practice, in your day-to-day, and you often think, what's the best way for me to support this person? So if they're eligible for aged care services and they have no one else to support them, so they're isolated, but they're needing a helping hand to navigate that process, they really fit within the Care Finder target population. Discuss this program with them, see if they think it's something that they would get a lot out of and are comfortable having a chat to someone about. Have a look at the organisations and see who delivers the service within the LGA that this person lives with, and with the consent, reach out and make a warm referral to the Care Finder organisation. If you're working with someone who's frail and vulnerable, but they're able, they're savvy, they can advocate for themselves, they can navigate My Aged Care process, try and push them into finding out more through the My Aged Care process. Or if they have family, friends or an existing service provider who's able to support and navigate that process, direct those individuals and their supports to the My Aged Care mainstream support channels, which again are the phone number at My Aged Care, online at myagedcare.com.au. In person, you can book in aged care specialist offices and see them face to face. And in our area, they're located at Woy Woy, Wallsend, Nelson Bay, Taree and Tamworth. Again, there's those additional support pathways that people can reach out and have a chat to someone. The advocacy support at OPAN, carer support through Carer Gateway, or there's a wealth of information at National Dementia Helpline. So thanks so much for coming along and finding out a bit more of the CareFinder program. You'll find out all this information on the PHN website. In general about the CareFinder program at the My Aged Care website. And please reach out if you do have any questions or you'd like to chat a little bit more. Just email us at info@thephn.com.au and I'll get back to you and answer any of your questions. Thanks very much.